Hi, I am Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government. And I have a great guest with me today. This is, I don't know, maybe his 5th appearance out of the last 7 years. I cannot believe he's been here that long. Preston Cook, how good to see you, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here again with you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Hillsborough Emergency Management.
That's right. That's
Boy,
right.
you had your hands full. I know a couple years when we wanted to get you on.
Right.
That was the day you had storms. In fact, you told me, don't ask me to come on because every time you do, I've got to go to work.
That seems like it's the case, you know? Oh, my goodness. But I'd love to come on the show. I love for us to talk and share with the folks out there exactly, you know, what they need to be doing to think about being prepared for these the storms that we've seen and any disaster. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Seems to be a lot of people paying more attention this year than last. And I keep going places and they say, well, that hurricane last year. We didn't have a hurricane in Tampa last year. We had a bad storm.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it was the perfect opportunity to wake people up. It really scared a lot of people, and hopefully they learned from that. We did as a county. We learned a lot of good lessons from it. I hope the citizens did as well, because we really need to remember that any storm that pops up has the potential to come here and be truly devastating. Folks really got a wake-up call last year, and you're right, we didn't see the worst of that storm the way that they did, you know, and down south and other parts of the state, but we did experience some impacts from it. We got some wind and some rain.
Do you know what the highest winds were? I was hearing 66, but I don't know if that's true.
Well, the highest winds that I heard of was about 90 miles per hour in gusts that we experienced in the county. Right, but it was not sustained, which is a big deal. It's a big deal, but we did have some pretty good winds. Again, we had over 34 homes in the county that was totally destroyed. People don't realize that. Even from that storm that didn't have the most devastating impacts, we had people that were impacted, you know, in a devastating way.
A lot of people were impacted.
Sure,
There's no question, because
absolutely,
a lot of them went somewhere when they really, it was a good thing. If you could get out of here, I had a friend who went all the way up to Utah just to get out of here, which was fine.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, you know, you want to make sure when you're talking about evacuations, right? People were, as I said before, very concerned about the storm, and rightly so. It was a big, scary event. And we called for evacuations, which we hadn't done in a long time. What I really want to make sure that everybody understands is you need to get out of the surge zones. We evacuate for surge. We really don't evacuate for wind unless you're living in a manufactured or mobile home park. But we really want people to know they can go tens of miles to be safe out of the surge zone instead of hundreds of miles. Because I know your friend went out to Utah, and my wife plans to leave as well to go, you know, out of the area if she can. But if you don't have to, I always recommend them going only as far as they need to, because you don't want to clog up the roads. You don't want to get stuck on the roads like some people that I heard going over to Orlando, which took 4 hours to go 1 hour during the storm because everybody said, I'm out of here.
Well, Route 4 is the most dangerous highway in the entire United States. Statistically, I'm not just hyping that. It is, and I'd stay off of Route 4 if you can.
Well, you know, the thing we want folks to do is to think about what they're going to do. Plan now of what they're going to do. Think about it. Learn from last year. Plan now, so they're not jumping to, you know, up at the last moment and then trying to do it.
First thing someone ought to know is this an evacuation zone that I'll live in?
Absolutely.
So how do they find out whether they're in an evacuation zone?
Very good question. We'd love for them to go to our website, hcflgov.net, right? hcflgov.net. Go to it /stay safe. Go to the county's website, look up emergency management, look up their zone. They can type in their address. It'll tell them if they live in an evacuation zone and a surge zone, what that is, give them the closest shelter or additional information that they can use to plan for where they're going to go. If they know if they live in an evacuation zone and they know, and if we call for that evacuation zone, if they have a plan of where they're going to go, makes life a lot easier for them and helps everyone else in the community, because they're not just going somewhere that they don't necessarily need to go, and they'll be safe.
That brings up another question. Somebody like in Sun City Center. All right. It is not an evacuation zone. All right. We know that. But there are elderly people there who got nervous and wanted to go to one of the shelters. But if they're not in an evacuation zone and they go to the shelter, what's going to happen?
Well, listen, we open up shelters for the public. So we're not going to turn anyone away from any of the general population shelters. We're just not going to do it. So if you don't feel safe in your home, wherever it is, then you can go to a shelter. I caution everyone, though, shelters should be used as a refuge of last resort. You really don't want to use that as your first option. Plan to go to a friend's house. Plan to go to a hotel outside of the surge zone if you're in an evacuation zone. Go to another family member's house, because shelters are safe, but they're not the most comfortable. They're not going to be it's not going to be the Hilton. It's not going to be around your friends. It's going to be amongst strangers. It's going to be an unfamiliar location, but it will be safe. But I would say if you don't have to go to a shelter, don't. But they're always available if you need to.
So they will always be allowed in to all the shelters?
They will be allowed to go into any of the general population shelters.
Okay.
Now,
how does
as
that
long as there's capacity,
differentiate-
right?
How does that differentiate from some of the other shelters?
Right, we have general population shelters and we have what's called special needs shelters. The special needs shelters, they really need to register with our special needs program, because this is the shelters where if you have medical needs, special medical needs that you can't go to a general population
power?
shelter for. Well, if you're on oxygen,
or
correct,
something like
that's
that?
really power dependent, or other medical needs that you can't get at a general population shelter and that you don't have to go to a hospital for, then many of those folks they need to be registered in our special needs program.
And where do they do that?
They go to our website as well. They can sign up on our website, or they can call the Florida Health Department here, our local number, and they can get registered with the Florida Health Department, which manages our special needs shelters. But they do have to go through the process of making sure that they qualify for the special needs shelter. Now, if they have needs that are far exceeding what we can supply at that shelter, then they probably need to go to a hospital or have other arrangements made. But we won't turn them away from a general population shelter if anyone is just not feeling safe in their home. If we call for an evacuation, you can go to those shelters. Special needs, they need to register.
Now, the Sun Dome is a general population shelter.
Nope, Sun Dome is a special needs shelter.
Special needs,
It's a special
all right.
needs shelter, one of our largest special needs shelters that we have here, absolutely. During this last event, we opened over, 42 different shelters, housed over 30,000 people. And we had special needs, general population, of course, pets and the lot. So we had everything that we could open. We pretty much had it open because we wanted to make sure that people had a safe place to go to. Again, if there was only 30,000, fortunately, of the people that evacuated, not all of them tried to go to a shelter, but we hope that those that needed it was able to get to the shelter, get that safe location. But we really hope that those that evacuated plan to go to a family, a friend's home, a hotel area outside of the evacuation zone.
We had a situation at our house where one couple that we're friends with, he just came out of the hospital with kidney surgery. And so we didn't want them to be alone, so we invited them over, and it turned out we had, I think, a dozen
There you
for
go.
a hurricane
There
party
you go.
that night. And it went very nicely. Everything went well.
That's what you want, though. You want to be in a place where you're going to feel comfortable and safe at the same time. And again, we evacuate for the water. The water is what will kill you. The water kills the most people in a hurricane. It's not necessarily the wind, because if you think about the Florida building codes and the building codes since Hurricane Andrew, a lot of the structures are way safer than they were back then. They're more safe than they were back then. Mobile home
Even
parks,
people that have had
manufactured
roofs
parks.
replaced
Well, sure.
on older homes, they've had to meet the new code.
Sure, absolutely. You have those the new materials that they have to meet and use, but also it's really important to note, if you live in a manufactured home, mobile home park, and we call for an evacuation, they evacuate for when? They have to go. Those homes, we just can't be sure that they're going to withstand the winds. But if you live in a more sound structure that's been built, in recent years or before,
A lot of the block
building
homes are
codes.
pretty
A
good.
lot of them are. Again, have someone to come out that's a professional and give you an assessment of your home if you're not sure if it meets the requirements. But you want to make sure that it's safe, because we don't necessarily evacuate for wind, but we definitely evacuate for the storm surge.
Are there professional services, even with the county,
Yeah.
that would come out and say, here's what you need to do to your home?
Well, the county.
Harden it?
Well, the county is not going to provide it, to all the citizens. But there's a lot of companies out there that will do that. Now we have code enforcement, and we have others that come out and will inspect a home if you have damage to your home, say it's a possible sinkhole and those things. But they're going to come out for life safety issues. Is really what we're going to look at.
I'm thinking to myself, I live in a senior community.
Right, right,
And
right.
the scams are just huge.
Sure,
Is
sure.
there any kind of official list
Right.
of people that would come out and look, and at a fee, obviously,
Sure.
but is there any kind of list that is published by the county?
Well, the citizens can go to the Development Services, Hillsborough County Development Services, and they really can talk to the folks there and our building official as well for the county. They can definitely give you some names of companies, reputable, licensed companies, which is what you're referring to,
Right,
where you can
yes.
get out there and you can really start, and you can choose from the list of companies that you want to have come out and inspect your home and really tell you if it's safe or not. That's really what you want to do. Just verify that if you're going to stay at home during an evacuation, if you're not in an evacuation zone, or during a storm, if you're going to stay at home, you want to make sure that it's safe. You do.
All right, somebody says we should evacuate.
Right.
Where should you plan to go, and how soon should you plan to go there?
Good question. Good question. Okay, when we're talking about evacuations, you really want to know, first of all, if you live in a zone, you said that, right? Know if you need to evacuate. If you don't need to, and your home is safe, then plan to stay put, right? And plan to have the things that you need to make you as comfortable as possible for you, your children, your pets, everybody in the family, from water, food, a generator if you can, right? If not, just making sure that you're prepared to ride out the storm in those conditions that follow a hurricane that says, that are usually without power for some period of time. And you want to make sure that you have the provisions that you need. But if you're going to evacuate, if you have to evacuate, you need to know where you're going to go. If it's to a shelter, know that you're going to go to a shelter and you have the supplies to take with you.
What should you take along with you to the shelter?
Well, there's not going to be a cot at a shelter, a general population shelter. You need to take some bedding with you. You need to make sure that you have, food that if you have a special diet that you'll have that you need to eat.
Okay.
But there'll be food available
If you're
for you.
diabetic or something like that?
Absolutely. Make sure that you have any meds that you need. Make sure that you have all of your information, your home insurance, your private documents that you really want to have post impact. Take some of that stuff with you, have it in a safe location, right? Make sure that you have a plan of what you're going to do, and that you share that plan with your family members. So if you're at a shelter, you don't think that you're not going to take a bed, with you. You're not going to take the kitchen sink. You're not going to just take what you need with you to that shelter, because we're going to
Take
provide
an air mattress or something like that?
not a huge one, but you have about 20 square feet that you'll have as an individual
Okay.
that you'll have
10 by
available.
10, roughly?
Right, sure, absolutely. So you can take you an air mattress and blow it up, and absolutely, or a pallet, as they call it, blankets and what have you that you can lay on the floor.
Many of us getting up and off the floor.
It's tough.
You
It's
need
tough.
help.
It's tough. Right, so that's why we want you to go to a hotel or family
Right.
friend's home, because the shelter, again, is going to be safe, but it's not going to be the Hilton. It's really not. But
You
plan
should
of where
ask
you're
for
going to
help
go.
too, right?
No, you absolutely
A
should
lot
ask
of
for help.
people are embarrassed. Well, I hate to ask for help,
No,
but
you have to ask for help. Listen, everybody needs somebody sometime, right? And during
that'd make a good song.
I'm telling you, but it's so true, especially in times like this when it's scary. It's something that we don't deal with every day. You have to ask for help if you need it, and offer help to others that may need it as well.
How soon should one start thinking about, well, you should start thinking about having to evacuate right now if you're in an evacuation zone.
Absolutely.
Don't wait until the day before
right.
and think, well, listen, I need to run to the store and get this, get my meds, whatever.
Right.
Because they may not be available by
Well,
then,
we saw
right?
that. We saw that. The shelves emptied pretty quickly, people were very, concerned. So yeah, you need to be planning of what you're going to do now. That's why we say start planning for everything that you need to think about. If you're going to evacuate, know where you're going to go. Test the route before you go. Try it out. Make sure that you tell somebody what your plans are.
I think that's a very important thing.
It's important.
Let somebody know, even leave a message at your home.
Well, people
where
call
you-
looking
where you
for their
are,
family
yeah.
members all the time because they didn't know what the plan was.
Right.
And so they're going to be concerned, especially if you're from out of state. You have to tell your family what your plan is. You have to have a plan.
Because cell phones may not work during the emergency.
Well, you can't reach them necessarily. Hopefully, that's a good point.
Towers go down.
Towers go down. You can't make those phone calls. Everybody's trying to. to, but
How
hopefully you
about
can text
Wi-Fi at the
messages.
facilities? Is there Wi-Fi at those facilities?
It depends on where you, at the shelters?
Yeah.
There's probably not going to be Wi-Fi at the facilities, but as long as power is up and the towers are still up, you'll have access to some power and then to the Wi-Fi, or at least to the ability to make an internet call or get on the internet. But you can't depend on it, is what I'm saying. After a storm, all bets are off. So you need to let people know long before and let them know that you plan to go somewhere safe anyway.
Okay, there's stages of notification on those zones, correct?
Yes, there is. There is, for every storm that's coming, we have zone A, B, C, D, or E, right? And so depending on the strength of the storm, how strong it's going to be, how much water it's really going to push possibly into our shores, that is what determines how far we need to evacuate from the coast. And so that could be zone A, which is what it was during Irma, but it could be A and B and C and D. It could be all the way up to E, which is a worst case scenario. But it is by different zones.
And that's a long way back from the water if it gets to E, right?
But I tell you what, it's a long way back, but it could happen. That's all I
saw
can
a
say.
sign, I believe it was in Gibsonton.
Right.
That the sign up there on a telephone pole about 15 feet up said Category 5 storm,
Right.
water will be here.
Well, people they see that sign and they go, wow, can you believe water will be that high? They just don't understand. We have a very shallow shelf out in the Gulf going out, and it has the ability to push water and let that water pile up really, really high in a very powerful storm. That's what we're concerned about.
Look how it sucked water out this time.
I know.
And
That was
people
something.
walked way, almost a mile out onto the shelf.
Well, that was a big storm, and it takes a powerful storm that can do that. So again, we dodged a bullet on that one. We really, really did. In that storm, that shows the strength of these hurricanes. It can not only push water in, but it can do miraculous things like that as well.
I think also, shouldn't you have some idea of the direction of storms moving? For instance,
Yeah.
a friend of mine, we lived in Apollo Beach at the time when Charlie came through.
Okay.
And a friend of mine in Orlando said, get away from the coast, come over here. And it changed course. It took out Orlando. They were without power for 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
And we didn't even lose power.
Right, and that's the point. That's why I say, really pay attention to what we're saying, what the professionals are saying in terms of the track of the storm, where we're thinking it'll go, because you can't be sure. Because like Irma, it waffled back and forth. But that's why you should evacuate tens of miles, only go as far as you need to go, and not hundreds of miles, because the storm may, just like Irma did, it was going to be an East Coast storm at
Right.
first, then it was West Coast, and then it's up you just don't know where these storms are going to end up. Go only as far as you really need to go, because you don't want to get stuck out there on the interstate, whether it's I-4, 75, or whatever the case may be, if you don't have to go that far.
Today, a normal rainy, wet day as we
Right.
drove to the studio,
Right.
it took me an hour to get from Sun City to get up to our studio here in the University Mall.
Now put that in this context of people are afraid, people are freaking out. And everybody's on the road at the same time. How long do you think it would have taken you possibly?
Might never have gotten there. Another thing, you're talking about evacuations.
Right.
But I never let my tank get down below half
Right,
full
right.
from the 1st of June till the 1st of November.
That's important. Thinking about the things that you're going to need to have in place as you're going into hurricane season, having cash on hand, fuel in your vehicle, supplies on hand for your family, and the things that you need. Not everybody can do it all at the same time or at the same level. We want to talk about that. Not everybody can buy everything at once. You might need to spread it out over a month or over a few weeks. So that's why you need to start
And
now.
of course, we have the tax holiday coming
Coming up Friday. Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
coming up.
by the time this plays, it'll be over. But next year, remember that.
That's right. But, think about it now. Have the things that you need in hand and plan for it now. Don't wait. That's the point.
You made the point about having some cash.
Right.
Because ATMs, if power goes out, they don't work.
They don't work.
And somebody's not going to take a check.
Right.
Because they don't have the cash to give you.
That's right.
So you really need to have whatever cash you can have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand a lot of people don't. They said, $400 problem in the paper the other day. If your family faced a $400 problem, that would be leading to bankruptcy.
A lot of
so
people
we understand that, but what you can, even if it's just $50.
Right. That's true. Do what you can now and spread it out over time. you want to make sure that you're planning the best that you can. We want to make sure that you're informed. Pay attention to the news. Pay attention to the local radio stations. Sign up for HCFL Alert. Go to our website. Sign up to the absolute free notification system that we can give you information about what's happening and what's going on so that you can make good decisions. That's really what we want people to do, is to plan now, make sure they can make good decisions when the time comes so that they can be safe, their families will be safe, and we as a community will be safe.
As we go to these various meetings, and Phyllis and I, my wife is a reporter for the Observer, we just went to a CERT meeting and a couple of others, and I asked the question, how many in the room can get their car out of the garage if the power's out? And there were a couple there who didn't know the answer to that. And I've asked it several times at other meetings.
Right.
There's a little hangy down thing from your garage door opener out in the garage. Jerk on that hard, that'll disconnect it, and then you can lift the door up.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy, but you ought to try it.
Sure.
To see that you can do it.
Right.
And at least you get the door up, you'll be able to get your car out.
Well, common sense
Don't do
things.
it during the storm.
Right. Well, common sense things is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Being able to do certain things, have certain supplies on hand, understand how things work. Right. Water on hand. Well, I do have to say, with all of the preparations, if anyone has a generator, they really need to be careful to make sure they follow the manufacturer's recommendations and instructions. You don't want to have unsafe situation.
How many people are overcome by fumes
Yeah,
from
you don't want
generators running in the wrong place?
Right. You don't want that. You don't want that. They're good to have. They can power, your television or your refrigerator or whatever, but you don't want to be
What's
unsafe.
your life worth?
Right.
Plus, it's about 1 gallon per every 4 hours.
Right.
So how much fuel are you going to have sitting around? Because fuel sitting around is dangerous also.
You have to think about what you're going to do with it and make sure that you're as safe as possible when it comes to fuel and anything that you're going to store that could be dangerous. But if you're thinking about it now, and you're planning for it now, then it's not a surprise to you. And
I keep my propane tanks full.
Right.
So that I can cook on the grill.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I also have a couple of lanterns and things that run off the propane.
There you go. And then you had 11
They're not
people
as
over.
dangerous.
Well, you had 11 people over for you. Had a lot
That's
of people
right.
that you needed to feed
But
too.
we never lost power,
That's
which
right.
was great.
Well, but you could have, but you were ready. That's the key.
Right.
If you would have lost power, you would have been prepared to do.
My buddy
what you
Gary
need to
Moll
do.
is a great cook. He come along, so.
So you always invite a good cook, right?
Oh yes. He and I
That's
have a
right.
great time in the kitchen. But you do need to think about those kinds of things.
You do.
You don't have to go out and buy cases of bottled water. Save some of your big jugs and fill them from your sink.
Right.
Before the storm, not
Absolutely.
after.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right.
But if what is it? There's a rule. How many gallons? A gallon per day per
A gallon
person or
per
something?
That's right. 1 gallon of water per day per person is what you need to plan for. Absolutely. And there's ways that you can store. You can buy the big bladders. You can get the bottles that you can refill. Just make sure that you've thought about it and have enough for however many people that you're expecting to be there to ride out the storm.
We do it throughout the year.
Yeah.
My wife Phyllis is really good about that. We keep a group of bottles and we make oatmeal. So she'll use one bottle to make oatmeal this time, fill
Right.
it, put it in the back.
There you go.
And keep it rotating so
There you
that
go.
the water doesn't always sit there for a year stale.
Right. That's what you do. Just keep rotating. With all your supplies, though, think about
Yes.
it. The food that you have, your canned foods, you can rotate that stuff out. And you can have a hurricane party with the kids going into hurricane season to use up the stuff you didn't use and then refresh it and replenish
There
it
you go.
to start again fresh
Even
for the
dry
season.
things
Absolutely.
need to be replaced. and
Absolutely. You
replenished.
want stuff as fresh as you can get it, obviously, because you want to enjoy and be able to eat things that your family enjoy. It's already going to be a traumatic time. You at least want to have good stuff to eat, I would think. So.
One other thing I do in our house, and maybe it's just a hint, but before a storm like this, I would fill up those big jugs with water,
Right.
put them in the freezer with
freeze
my
'em up.
food and things like that, and let them freeze.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
that keeps my freezer colder longer. And it also gives me a source of water.
Absolutely, when it melts down. And you can use it for a lot of different things. What you're talking about is really people needing to take a moment just to think
Common
about
sense.
what they can do to save money as well as to be prepared during these times. So common sense is really the word.
Of course, if common sense was all that common, there'd be more of it.
That's right. That's right.
We've got about 3 minutes left.
Right.
I don't want to miss anything that you feel is very important to get across to our audience.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is it's everybody's responsibility to be prepared. It's mine, it's yours, it's everybody in the community. Government can't do it all.
And don't look for first responders during the great storm. What is it, 45 miles an hour they quit?
Well, at 39 miles per hour,
39.
tropical storm force winds, they're not going to go on the roads if it's unsafe. Those are big vehicles like fire rescue vehicles. You don't want them to fall over and
Right.
have,
Yeah.
put their lives in danger. But they will come out as soon as it's safe to do so.
Right.
Okay? But every person has a responsibility now to be prepared as possible, because government may not be able to come, not only because of the winds, but because of the road blockages and other reasons why we can't get to you. You need to have at least 3 to 5 days of supplies available for you, your family, and everything that you need to sustain yourselves for that period of time, because we may not be able to get there. And it's everybody's responsibility to do that. It's starting now. That's really
So you're
what it's
looking
for.
at a gallon of water
per person.
per person
per
for
day.
5 days. So
That's
it's
right.
not hard to do the math there.
Right, right,
Plus, what about things like flushing the toilets?
right, right.
Now, we live on a lake, so I can go out there and fill up a bucket
Sure.
and use it to flush the toilet with.
Sure, and that's what a lot of people can do. Again, it depends on where you live, as you said, but sometimes you can use water to help to flush down, to push the water down the toilet, of course. But you need to make sure that you're doing it and it's safe. You're not putting anything that's not supposed to
true.
go down the
Yeah.
toilet, obviously. But things like that, having the water on hand will help in those cases as
Fill
well.
the bathtub?
Absolutely. You can fill the bathtub. You can use the bathtub to store water for, as well. And that's a large storage container, but you need to make sure it's clean, bleached out,
I'm gonna
and
say,
that kind of stuff, and make sure it's good to go. There's a lot of
I've
things
drank
like
worse,
that.
but
Go to our website. They can go to our website and they can get a lot of these tips and information of what they can do and what they can have in place to be prepared for hurricane. That's hcflgov.net/stay safe. And they really can get a lot of good information there.
they should go to the homeowners associations and things,
Sure.
the community association meetings.
Absolutely.
I know
Absolutely.
in Sun City there's going to be several of them.
Right.
And I think that's a very important thing to go to these meetings, because it tells you what's locally available
Right, right. Absolutely.
and what isn't.
Well, that's key. You need to know what you're going to do in case something happens, but you need to know where to go and get things that you're going to need if something does happen as well. Very good points. Very good points.
I always enjoy you being on the program. Can we book you just? But no, that's right. You're afraid a storm.
If
will
I
come
do
up.
it, you might cause a storm. You might cause a storm to happen now. But I love to be here. I really appreciate it. And as much as we can get out to tell the citizens to be prepared, that's what I want to do. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you've done a wonderful job over the 7 years.
Well, thank you.
We're
I
so
appreciate
glad that you decided to make Tampa your home.
Absolutely.
It's
Well,
a
thank you.
fabulous place, and with people like you keeping us safe, it's even more important.
Well, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Preston Cook, our Emergency Services Manager for Hillsborough County. I'm Bill Hodges. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often, you know. And Preston, again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're always welcome. If you come up with an idea you want to do, even when it's not a storm season,
Absolutely.
let us know,
Absolutely.
because there's always emergencies, right?
There's always emergencies. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.